lot of people are maybe doing customer research the wrong way or approaching it a little bit wrong. Curious your thoughts there. Like, what are some common mistakes that you're seeing there that make it all go awry?
So I think one of the challenges is, one, we don't get enough depth of research. Two, we don't segment and define who we want to talk to get the insights we need. And third is, we treat research as this blanket thing. There's so much to understand about a buyer's business and how we interact with them, because sometimes the relationships with a customer are over years. So we have to understand how we interact with them at various stages of our relationship. And you can't get most of that in one conversation, or one survey. So I think those are usually the three things that I see where people fall down with the research. One of the jokes we have in LinkedIn when I talk to other researchers is that it's often seen as like it's a dirty word inside a business. And again, for lots of reasons, but I think those are the things I see, Dustin, the most.
Yeah. And I think, the fact that it's a dirty word, like you said, in some businesses, and that it's an ongoing thing, I find a lot of people rely more on things like call recordings or AI to transcribe it, which I do think helps. I don't think that's full on research. I think we do that, but how do you get the depth then? Is it just the full on conversations?
Well, it's a whole range of things. So just on that point, absolutely. Sales calls are fine. People have been recording sales calls now for the last 15, 20 years, even longer than that. Like, that's nothing new. I think the technology has made it easier, but I think you need to step back and understand, like, what is a sales call? Well, it's at the stage that the buyer has high intent to purchase, and they've pretty much done a lot of the evaluation already. When they get to a sales motion or a high intent motion, they often will understand terms and conditions, integrations, cost structures, just like even onboarding costs. Like, what's the timeline for things? Who's gonna, all the nuances of how it's actually going to fit within the business. Before they get to that, though, there's all these things happening inside their business that they prioritize that they're going to probably improve something or solve a problem, and then eventually over months or years build a short list and get to that high intent stage. What are they doing then? That stuff does not show up in a sales call. If it does, it's like sort of glossed over. It's not going to show up in surveys. It's not going to be on your dashboards. So to your question, how do you go get it? Calls and understanding, like, out in the ethers, how people are talking about different problems and issues. There's different ways we frame them historically. Some people call them like buying triggers. Some people call them like category entry points if we're using sort of like the Byron Sharp methodology. But at the end of the day, there's all these key drivers that are triggered within a business, and then they start looking to the ethers for how they're going to solve this problem. And then that's what marketing needs to understand, is that specific point. Because if I can influence that point way before it gets to sales, then I have a better chance of actually influencing their decision. That was a long answer to what you just asked, but that's like the key thing. Sales calls are good. It's just one piece of the puzzle.
For sure. Yeah. I think in general, research is one of those things where it gets to the point where people will do the research and then not know how to categorize, summarize, and act on it. Just because, like you said, it's an ongoing thing with many different stages. And I find that's where they get lost. They send out the survey, they have the conversations, and then nothing comes of it.
I can talk about some of the methods that I take on in my work, but a lot of it comes down to, if you don't understand what you're doing the research for and why, and then you don't understand how you're going to action this stuff and what you're going to define success to look like after you've gathered all the data and then measured your implementation of the insights from the data and see whether you've moved the needle. Like, just going out and talking to people isn't going to do much if you don't have all those other things mapped out as well.